Welcome to Mornings with Matt, personal and professional development training that connects the art of acting with critical life skills and self-mastery. Presented by the Deering Acting Studio.
Yo, yo, yiggity, 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 yo.
What up, everyone?
Let's get my face on the screen, Joe, man. We got a show today, and the reason that we are pumped is we are about to experience the Shay effect.
It's the number one effect.
That's right. Miss Shay Topol is coming back to the studio in person. She gonna be here. She gonna be live. Gonna be right in front of us. We haven't seen and had the Shay effect over here for a while now.
Since the last podcast when she came in like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. So she's gonna be here, and we're beginning our transition as a studio of getting our doors back open to the public.
Facts.
Which we'll be doing on June 1st. Made a big video announcement, which has gone over pretty well, by the way.
Big news.
I don't know if you know this, dude, but that video it's got a ton of views, man. People are pretty stoked.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the video, it deserves the views. It does.
Well, yeah. It's a good edit, dude. You did a great job. But this lends the question today, and I want to just maybe dive into this a little bit. And the question is, should people go back to work? Is now the time? Should you go back to work? And how does that look? What does it look like? You know? And I think it's a great topic to begin talking about.
Yeah.
So let's start here from your perspective, right? So you technically never stopped going to work.
True.
Right?
Very factual.
So, and we are a very, very small, portion of the people that are in this category right now because our team is so compact, you know. So on a very tiny scale, let me ask you, as someone who has been coming to work now consistently, what is your feeling about the other 25% of our employees all coming back at the same time here today, which is really just one, which is Shay?
Yeah, I mean, I'm stoked about Shay coming back, obviously. Super excited. It's going to be weird.
But talk about it, because she, it's not like you haven't talked to her every day. Of course you have. So
yeah, it's not the same. It's not even close to the same.
Okay,
ever.
so what makes it different?
Well, I mean, the difference is it's just the human connection. Like, it's a lot of the times it's a phone call for a problem or a question or something like that versus like when you're in person, you get to build each other up side by side. And honestly, like for me, teaching, especially tech stuff, is much easier when you can look over the person's shoulder and sort of walk through it with them and like laugh through if it was like something silly. But when you're on the phone, it's really hard to like help them get to the solution of their problem very quickly, unless you're screen sharing or doing whatever, and even that takes a long time to set up.
Okay, so I mean these are a couple different ideas you're running by me now. So the one is the human connection.
Yeah.
Just being around another human being that isn't me
or Brian
is exciting. The other one, though, is you were saying about teaching. So a part of what you do right now is training Shay on some of the technical things that she's now required to do that she wasn't required to do before, correct?
Yeah, and I mean, she's a guru. I mean, she learns quick, and she set up almost all of our live links and all that good stuff by the end of this quarantine. But there was a transition process where it was trial and error, and like I made tutorial videos and did a couple of silly things to try to push that forward. So I'm just excited to be able to work side by side again.
So what do you think are but before we dive into sort of my opinion on all this stuff, because I'm curious about you, what do you suppose are some of the drawbacks, some of the potential things that could actually go wrong?
I mean, probably everybody's had their own bubble. So, I mean, it's tough for me to say because I've been around you and Brian every day. So, really, the only piece of the puzzle that hasn't been there is Shay.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's kind of hard to wrap my mind around, like, what something being super different when she's back versus just being exciting that she's here. But, I mean, yeah, I'm not exactly sure, to be honest.
Well, think about this. So there are advantages and there are disadvantages to being in person, right? So think about it. What are some of the things that could actually be a disadvantage of having her here versus having her away?
Mm. Well, she probably, like, because a lot of the time, the three of us, you, me, and Brian, are either collectively working on something or spread apart working on different things, but we pull each other all the time
Okay,
to
good.
look
What do
at
you mean
something.
by that? We pull
Like,
each other.
we pull each other's focus to, like, so say I was editing a video and you were doing SEO work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're in the middle of this SEO work and you're in state, and I'm also in state in editing, but I look at it and I go, I know Matt's not going to like this edit. I don't know why I need him to look at it. So
Right.
then I pull your focus over to the editing bay, which necessarily isn't wrong. But if I'm pulling you out of state, like, that's something that she hasn't had to experience in a while.
Right.
But it's something that our team has always dealt with a little bit, is pulling each other out of focus and setting those timers to where it's like, oh, yeah, don't talk to me during this time so that this gets done. And then if it's an emergency, I will ask you, but only
Yeah.
if it's an emergency.
Yeah. So and it's funny. I was writing about this morning in the book, and the focus is such a huge deal, and distractions are such a huge deal. And I agree with you. I think that would be one of the big things that we would want to be cautious of because we're not used to it. And we're excited. I can imagine most workplaces nowadays that there's only been a very select few people allowed in the building. So it's weird because there's almost something going to be novel about being back in your space.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, like, hey, we're back, and like you're gonna want to just talk about the fact that you're back all day, and that's a waste, But there's gonna be this transition. There's got to be, there needs to be some form of a transition because we talked about social distancing being the new normal for a little while. Now all of a sudden we're gonna try to find another new normal.
So would you say, I'm curious here, I'm just going to ask you a question on the fly. Would you say that you have to shock your system to the person coming back then? Because we talked about that yesterday, about shocking your system on your own personal development and when you're lacking. But, like, having somebody come back into the work environment or going back into your work environment if you're somebody outside of here. Like, would you say, like, how would you shock your system to dive into that productively?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know if it's the same thing because you can't really shock your system. I don't think. I guess you could make sure that you're early. You could make sure that you schedule time out for certain things. But here's what we're gonna do here. I'll tell you right now what we're gonna do at our workplace. And if I was gonna be consulting for any business and I came in there and they're like, hey, help us with this transition, here's what I would do is I would have some different meetings with some of the executives, and we would talk about the transition back. And we would actually discuss out loud the honest difficulties that we could assume are going to come. Then I believe the best case scenario is actually to bring it up. So by us talking about the fact that this is going to be hard, us talking about the fact that this is going to be different, that it's going to be novel, that these are the potential traps, we can all agree upon those things. Then we know what we're up against, and then we can actually create a plan, a strategy around it that is specific to our business.
Yeah.
So for instance, I as a studio owner who knows my employees very intimately, I understand that Joey needs 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You need 5 minutes to just be silly and be jumping around and be super excited that Shay's here.
Facts.
Facts.
Big facts.
So then me talking to you about this ahead of time, you and me discussing what it's going to look like, what it's going to feel like, etc. Us saying like, hey, I know this about you. And you're like, yeah, facts. If you were to do that, and I think I've been guilty of this in the past. Matter of fact, I know I have. You being excited in that way, and then me squashing your excitement, which is not what would be my intention.
Yeah.
Because we did it, like if we not talked about it in advance, and you're getting all excited, and then 5 minutes turns into 10 minutes, my brain as an owner gets worried for our job security. That's the weirdest thing. It's like, it's never a negative thing. It's never like a, oh, you've done something bad kind of thing. But it's like, hey, let's not all forget that we need to make money. And so at some point in time, we have to be productive. We have to push the sail the ship forward. And the more we keep distracting each other and the more we keep letting ourselves get distracted, the more we're going to be taking ourselves further away from our long-term goals, which include giving all of you guys raises, So it's like, my intentions would be good, but it would be very much conceived as negative.
Yeah.
And therefore, literally, me trying to help you get a raise in my mind could throw you into some kind of a depressive funk.
Yeah.
And get you mad or just upset or just like not understanding like why is Matt being this way?
Well, yeah, I'd love to speak on that because again, that is something that I definitely like. I feel like I need a little dose of that, but B, I can take it like and go crazy with it. Like for example, when DeAndre Hopkins got traded to the Cardinals, I know it's silly, but when he did, like I couldn't stop looking at it because I was like, yo, I've thought about that for years. I've dreamed about it, and I thought it would never happen. And then just out of the blue one day in the middle of quarantine, like, best receiver in the league got traded to my team. That's so cool.
Yeah.
But things like that can get me super excited, super passionate, and then I get stuck on that thing for the rest of the day or the rest of the week or the rest of the month. And then, like you said, like if somebody comes along and they smash that, I either get like super defensive or I get like where like you said, I just get like, oh man, I thought you were going to be excited with me, So that's definitely something where I see that and I'm like, okay, yeah, that definitely is a thing that I do that I should watch out for because there's a balance in everything,
Absolutely. And let's talk about that distraction, The other, and this goes back to my advice for everybody, which we're going to get to in a minute. It was just, should I go back to work? Should a person right now be going back to work since they're allowed to? And when I think about this idea of the distraction, one of the biggest things, and this is my advice when I'm saying I'm going to consult with all these business managers and people who are about to start slowly bringing people back in, the advice is going to be have open conversations ahead of time. Know your people. Speak into their strengths. Speak into their weaknesses. You know that Fred takes things too seriously, and you know that Jill takes things too casually, and let's talk about it openly, and let's be frank about the fact that we have these different personalities and people handle things differently. But then let's set the expectations, and then let's be very, very clear about the why. And then ideally what you do is you set yourself up for an environment of truth. So you know how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very, very specific about the truth.
Yeah.
You sleep in? Is it a problem? No, unless you try to cover it up.
Facts.
You don't show up? Is it a problem? No, unless you try to cover it up.
Facts.
You make a mistake? Is it a problem? No, unless you try to cover it up. That's the big thing. It's got to be truth. So let's say this DeAndre Hopkins thing happened, and I think this did happen slightly. Like you said, you got very distracted, right? But this is, to your credit, that you're admitting it. This is the first time that you're really allowing yourself to admit this thing out loud. It feels good to admit it out loud. So going back in time, I had brought something up about it, and you actually denied it or got defensive about it. And the best thing to do, so I bring this back on me. I apparently didn't bring it up in the right way, at the right time, and you have to take yourself accountable. But this is how I take it. This is how I'm accountable. As I say, clearly, I could have done a better job of bringing it up at a different time when, you could have received it differently, or we could have had a different conversation that didn't involve that, so that you could have helped get yourself to the answer without me.
Yeah.
Just like you did this morning.
Yeah.
But it was a distraction. Like you letting that come up and feed you in the middle of work, in the middle of you doing one thing, and then saying it's not distracting you is an internal lie. But it's one that you can believe really well.
Yeah.
And again, to your credit, but then back to my credit, is you called me out on this the other day. I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before.
Oh yeah, with the YouTube.
With the analytics.
Yeah.
So I've been working so hard on our analytics lately, and I've been learning these new skills. And so the numbers are fascinating because it's just something I've never done before. So I'm like all in on these numbers and trying to figure things out. And truth be told, I end up getting down wormholes, and it's okay to look at analytics. It's important to look at analytics, especially when I'm learning. I need to really be diving deep into those analytics. But the truth is, that day, at that moment, I was using the analytics as an escape from doing the thing I was supposed to be doing, and Joey called me out on it.
I did do that.
And then what was my response?
Your response was, "You're right." And I will close out my tabs.
That's right. That's right. And sometimes my response is this. Sometimes my response is, "You're right, but I'm going to keep going for another 10 minutes."
Yeah.
So either way, it's like it's an admission though, right? So once you admit it, then you go, okay, this is a weakness that I have. This is a thing that I'm experiencing right now. Let me admit it to be true so that we can then deal with it. And then we can move forward and we can create a plan for that thing. So if in advance we've had the conversation now we both know you're allowed, not allowed, but you're gonna jump up and down and get excited for 5 minutes when Shea shows up, just like DeAndre Hopkins was, invited to play for the Arizona Cardinals. But then you're now gonna have a responsibility to yourself and to Shea and to me and to the studio and to all the students who are gonna be here to get yourself into a state of productivity.
Yeah.
And to then benefit the people around you and take advantage of the fact that Shea is here in person.
Mm-hmm.
Which brings me to my question that I asked to start the show, which is, should a person go back to work right now? Because they can, should they go back to work? And the answer is yes, kind of, sort of, maybe.
That was a good one.
Because here's the deal. The truth is now, we've all been talking about this, but things have shifted, times have changed, and so we have discovered new ways of doing things. And some of those ways we enjoy more. And I can tell you, like with our clients, there's going to be plenty of clients, plenty of our business training clients, plenty of our actors who are going to be coming in here who are going to say, you know what, for me, right now, I would still prefer to stay home for another month. Cool. We better have an answer for that. We better be ready to work with those people. If Shea was of that mindset, I better be ready to go, cool, let me prepare for that. On the other end of things, you as a person who is coming from home, who is deciding to work from that place, I believe personally you have a responsibility to do two things. One, work harder and better than you've ever worked. And two, prove it. Because the problem is when you're not in the workplace, the boss, the manager, the whoever can't see you. They don't get to see the fact that your fingers are still typing on the keyboard, or that you're still actively engaged with the people that you're supposed to be responsible for. And so keeping some sort of a log and then helping your superior understand all the work that you've been doing and the ways that you've been going above and beyond to push the company forward is something that will benefit you and give your superior peace. Because at the end of the day, they've got a responsibility back to you to make sure that you still have a job at the end of the month, at the end of the week, at the end of the year. And so, if a CEO or a manager or whoever is doing their job, they're thinking 3, 4, 5 steps ahead. And 3 or 4, 5 steps ahead right now can look pretty scary, especially if there's uncertainty with how much work is being done. And that can be the case when we're not having the same types of check-ins, when we can't just like walk around and look over each other's shoulder and just make sure that things are going well. So that's the answer. If you are more productive, if some things from home are better, then you should bring up that conversation. You should talk about it. Say, hey, in this area of my job, I actually think being home is better, and here's why, and let me prove it. And ideally, if you've been taking logs, you could actually show the difference between before COVID and after COVID, and you can say, here was my work before, here's my work after, here's what happens when I go to work, here's what happens when I stay home. And so in these areas, it's much better if I stay home. And these areas, I admit, are going to be better if I come in. So let me tell you, my suggestion to you, boss, is that I come in on Tuesdays and Thursdays because of this reason here. And then every other day, my suggestion is I stay home because of these reasons here. And all of these reasons are going to benefit both you and me. What do you think? And the boss is going to have a really hard time saying no to that. You know what I'm saying, dog?
I do know what you're saying.
Joey gave me one of those looks like, am I supposed to talk?
I was like, I got nothing. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna tell my boss that. And I was like, wait, you are my boss, and wait, nothing has changed.
Well, here's the deal. Let's talk about this for a second. So what's interesting is you, Joey, in one way, like we've done some experimenting. If you remember, we moved your entire operation home.
Oh, yeah.
As an option. We were there for like 2 weeks, and there were definite advantages to it.
It was awesome.
It was awesome. And what were the disadvantages?
I missed you.
Yeah, I missed you too. But also, there were things where you were required to be here at certain times, and it ended up being a lot of back and forth. So the back and forth, the hassle of that turned out to be not worth it.
Yeah,
in the end,
the tech stuff.
It was the tech stuff, but it was also the, you're the editor, but I'm very much involved. You and I talk about every video, we go through every video, I review everything, and it's very much a collaborative thing.
Yeah.
Well, to have me come to your house every single time there was an edit, or have you have to export and send it to me, that again was slowing down. It was clogging up our operation.
Yeah.
So we figured out, and now you're not back to what you were doing though, right? There's a middle ground now. Like you're in a different desk in a different place in the studio than you were before.
I'm at the front desk.
You're at the front desk, but
I get some sunlight, baby.
Yeah,
it was great.
It's amazing.
I see the sun. I'm not in the dark corner.
And what's interesting is that was my idea.
It was your idea.
It was
a tremendous idea.
But why did I have that idea? Because we experimented, and I was willing to experiment. And you had the idea, and it's like, okay, cool. And then what I did was instead, and I had a reaction I remember right away because you didn't tell me, and then you did it, and I'm like, okay, no problem. So then once we got past that, I went in with an open mind, and I'm going, what are all the benefits? And I would ask you, like, what are the benefits?
Yeah.
And one of them was the sunlight. I remember you saying it. Yeah. Like, you're like, there's a window, and it's like, and I feel good, and I'm like, okay.
I remember you came in, and I was like, and then you like walked in the back of my room, and you were like, "Why is your window open?" And you were like, "Why are you editing with the window open?" I was like, "Look at the trees, man. Look at the trees."
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, of course, like seeing the outside, having a window, like those things are good. It's good for the spirit, good for the soul. So anyway, bottom line was like, all right, we did this experiment. It didn't work perfectly, but what can we learn from it? What was better? How can we operate at a higher level? And then we found that place.
Yeah.
So we're going to do the same thing with Shay, I guarantee you, and she's going to be here. The first thing we're going to do, we're all going to celebrate,
Mm-hmm.
We're going to treat her like the princess that she is. She'll walk in and she'll get an espresso waiting for her, and she'll have like the whole
water.
The whole treatment, and you'll celebrate her and dance around like a
schoolgirl.
Schoolgirl on Christmas, and basically, and then that's it. And then we're going to have this conversation, and we're going to have to say, what makes us better when Shay's here in person?
Everything. No, I'm just kidding.
No. Not when Shay's here, but when Shay's here in person.
Yeah.
Because you're right, everything's better when Shay's here. But when Shay's here in person, what's better?
The vibe.
And that's right. So when do we need the vibe? And that's when we got to ask ourselves these questions, because there are times when we got to focus on the vibe, and there are times when we got to focus on productivity, taking the company next level, zoning in.
Yeah.
And during those times, we don't want a vibe.
No,
the vibe needs to be quiet and get back to work, right? And so that'll be the thing that we're going to kind of like wrestle with today. We're going to try to find our rhythm. And then through experimentation, we'll find a new way, new path that didn't exist before.
Stop you. We're not going to try to find our rhythm, bro. We're going to find our rhythm.
Boom. Blow it up. That's
Facts.
exactly right. Facts. Joey Sweeney facts. All right. So the question, should a person go back to work right now? And the answer is yes, maybe, sort of, kind of. And, my opinion from the beginning is you should have never stopped working. And I mean, like, never stopped working on yourself, on your own company, on ways that you can go next level. We all need to be grateful right now if we have a job, if we are connected into an organization that has been, trying to find ways to push forward. I see stories now, like the Hyatt had to let go of like 1,300 people the other day. And, these big companies are having to make these adjustments. And if you're a part of a company that's fighting, that's scratching, that's staying alive, you need to get right in there, get right into the fight, and be actively committed to this cause. And the cause is, like, we are all trying to overcome the COVID thing and the lockdown thing and push forward and take our entire society next level. So are there going to be differences? Yeah. And you need to protect yourself. You got to protect your company. You got to protect your employees. So that's the other thing is, ideally, every organization right now has been pre-thinking, how do I bring people back, and in such a way that can be very safe and that will only maximize our productivity and taking the company in this new direction, because there's no doubt every company is going in slightly a new direction right now.
Well said, Matthew Deering. Well said.
Thanks, bro. Plus, I read something, dude, that's gonna just ruin this podcast.
Okay, go ahead.
I looked up when were sports gonna come back. Like,
no, don't do it to me. Don't do it. Don't do it. Is it bad?
It's bad. Yeah.
No!
But here's the thing. It was just group events, so there's a possibility that there just won't be fans there.
No.
But
I need to see a Cardinals game this year, man.
They said 2021, bro.
No!
I know. That's what the article said.
Why did you do this to me? Why did we have to do this on the air? You couldn't have waited?
Why am I such a moron? Because think about this. Now what is Joey? I'm gonna have to try to keep him focused away from that all day. I'm sorry, dude.
I'm gonna look at articles all day.
It hit me so hard. I was like, I gotta share this with Joey. And then I didn't get to talk to you last night.
I told Shay, I was like, I'm gonna find my way to the Cardinals Stadium this season. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna get in there.
Well, my guess is they're gonna do something where they'll find ways to like bring in pockets of fans. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And I told my wife last night, I was like, technically the NFL is probably more powerful than the government anyway. So
also, I mean, if they don't bring in pockets of fans, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to watch them all on TV. Then I'm going to tweet every player after every play and be like, nice job. Because that's the woo! Just hands up emoji.
The ref's Twitter is going to be just filled with Joe. Like, what are you doing? It's a terrible call.
That's an awful call.
You're blind.
Did you start their defense in fantasy this week?
All right, so the answer is yes, kind of, maybe, sort of. You should be going back to work. Unless you are a professional football player, then you definitely should be going back to work this fall because we all cannot wait for the season to start. Okay, thanks so much for watching. Please do not forget to like, subscribe, and share this channel. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to Mornings with Matt. Please like, subscribe, and follow us at Deering Acting Studio to keep up with the latest content. For more information on classes, private lessons, or professional development coaching, visit www.deeringstudio.com. Have a Deering day, everyone.